Ladies and gentlemen, it's here, it's out. Early access 0.6 on the experimental branch is released today for Big Ambitions, and man, is it a big one. Check it out. So, where do we begin? Well, we start with factories. They've finally released factories for Big Ambitions. Now, what this means is that you can finally produce your own products as opposed to buying them from the importer. The importer is a fantastic source of goods, don't get me wrong, but if you can make your own products, I mean, you're going to increase the margin that you're going to be making money off of each product that you sell, so a much higher profit margin. Now, it is a large investment to begin with, but in the long run, it is a much more fruitful venture as you move forward expanding your empire, because now you can basically plan for your expansions a lot easier. You don't need to worry about, you know, how much do I need to get from the importer? How much do I need to logistically send over and all that stuff? Now, you still need to worry about logistics, but it's going to be from your own source as opposed to the importer. And hopefully this also means that you'll be impacted less by shortages. Now, they did release a peer area that includes the new importers for goods, for raw goods, to make your products in your factories. And what this means is that you could potentially get shortages from them. Now, I'm not sure if that's entirely true or not because I haven't seen it yet, but I imagine that there will be shortages from raw goods as well. But again, like I said, it should be less impactful because you should be building up a stock of the goods that you're making in your factories. So you're probably thinking, well, that's great. So where do I go? Well, I can show you. So the new business is in a spot that we all should have seen at this point. It was under construction for a while, but it is now the Factory Supply Depot. So this place is pretty cool. I mean, you get the whole look and feel of what the machinery is going to look like inside your factories, which, I mean, it's pretty neat that they've done such a fantastic job of basically creating this whole manufacturing process. And it looks honestly pretty nice. I mean, we're going to test some of these out, don't get me wrong, but just looking at them on the onset, they put a lot of detail into these items to make them look believable. And, you know, I'm not going to say that they look realistic as if I've ever been in a factory that produces anything. I haven't, but to me, as a person who has never been in a factory and seen any of this stuff, this looks believable. I mean, it looks like a believable set of machinery for this. It's pretty cool. So you might be wondering, where do you start? Well, first you need to find a warehouse, and then you need to essentially just start a new business, in this case, a factory. Just like normal, you would normally have a warehouse, now you have the factory option. We're just going to call this a test factory today. We'll get that business started. Now you'll see here that it has its normal schedule. You have factory output stations that we'll see what this looks like here in just a moment, but you still have drivers, inventory to worry about. Settings are pretty simple. Real estate settings in this case, obviously, because I just purchased the building. I'm on a test environment, so we're just going to keep it as is right now. All right, so at the factory supply store, we see what the prices are going to look like for most of these machines. Now, this is experimental. This may not be the final cost of items. However, looking at it myself, I think this is the perfect thing to do, because eventually we get to a point where the game snowballs and you make tons of money every single day with not really too much to do with it. I mean, yeah, you can keep continuously opening businesses, but as we all know, that can get kind of old after a long time. So this solves that problem. You don't need to worry about, you know, continuously expanding the same business over and over again with the money that you have. Now you can start investing in building your own, you know, supply chain, essentially. And with these higher costs, that'll make it honestly somewhat realistic in the sense of, like, you can't just build 20 factories all at once and just be completely done and that's it, because that's kind of boring too. So thankfully they make this really cool. Now, granted, obviously, I'm sure there's plenty of you out there that can, you know, actually do what I just mentioned and be done. But I think this is still a good starting point with the cost of these goods. And what I've gone ahead is I have a whole thing set up for a burger joint and whatnot. We're going to try to test this out before moving on to the rest of what this patch looks like. All right, so a couple cool little changes here. So first off, we now get deliveries inside. We no longer have to go outside with a hand cart, you know, bringing in four pieces at once. You know, it's just, that was kind of a hassle, let's be honest. Now, what we see here is the ability not only to move where this is. So let's say you want to just have it here while you're getting the, you know, like what I'm doing, getting this place filled out. It's movable, which is really neat. Now, the other thing is that you can get up to 100 items now per delivery instead of just 52. Massive change there as well. These two changes combined will now quicken the process of going through your businesses and getting them, you know, filled out, appliances out, everything getting ready. You know, it makes it a lot easier, because a lot of my time, for instance, in my videos, I spend on these buildings and businesses and whatnot is spent moving stuff over and over and over again. A chunk of time. Can't tell you how much time, to be quite honest. It's a lot. But this makes everything much, much easier. It's a great quality of life change that I think was very, very needed. Now, another thing that I've noticed thus far, and I haven't experienced it with, you know, the most annoying things about the UI, but one thing I've noticed is the UI is different. It's been updated. How these little pop-ups pop up in the world, it's changed dramatically. No longer am I running next to something and having a pop-up at all times, which tells me stuff like the angled shelf for, you know, fruits and vegetables, that's no longer hopefully going to be a nightmare. I'll test that out here as well, but this is a very welcome change. No longer do I have to worry about just random things popping up in front of the information that I'm actually trying to look at. Now I can dictate what actually pops up, and I'm hitting the Alt button right now. Nothing comes up anymore. So I don't know if that was a change on purpose or not. I did kind of find that button to be useful just to see, you know, where are all the clickable items in my immediate vicinity. But I like what we're seeing right now. It's definite progress. Another update that they had, which I really, really like, is the new lighting update. Everything looks so much better. There is a couple quirks that I think need to be addressed, and that's namely how the interiors of businesses look. But overall, the lighting update is fantastic. You can very much so tell that they have added, you know, basically an arc for the sun to pass over the area that you're in. I don't know exactly how they did it, but whatever they did, perfect. It is absolutely perfect. Now, the next thing is even more fun to me in terms of traveling, but check it out. We have a new stop for Ikabohag. No longer do you have to take taxis or, you know, run over here and whatnot. At the beginning of the game, you can get right over here very fast, very easy, taking the new stop. And I love the new UI for this. Much better. Much easier to see. Very well made. I really appreciate this change. I mean, it's made it a lot easier to figure out where the stations are. Before, you had to basically look on the map, which wasn't necessarily difficult, but it was just slightly tedious when you're trying to find, you know, exactly where the stops are. We also have a new interior designer. Now, as you can see up here, they completely changed the layout. We have a hand tool, eyedropper tool, palette tool, cell tool, wall, floor, product selector tool. I mean, this is awesome. It brings in everything that you've already had placed in the business itself, the building, and it puts it all in one centralized location, which is awesome. I believe another change is hitting shift. You can now hit shift and completely blanket a surface with a pattern. So for instance, no longer do you have to, let's use a different color here. No longer do you have to do this. You can now just do this. And it fills in the entire space. And I don't know if you noticed that. Let's do this again. I'm going to make a square. Now I'm currently holding shift. Notice how it's not filling in that square. So it fills in like spaces. So similar to how if you're on like paint or something like that, and let's say you use the magic lasso tool or whatever it's called, whatever the tool is that gives you the elliptic tool. There we go. So you make a circle, and if you click fill on the outside of that circle, your selected space won't fill in, but if you fill in inside the circle, it fills the space. So basically it fills the like or the same type of space, which I could just go boom and see it just fills just the space. Awesome change. Awesome, awesome change. I really appreciate that. It's a really great way to basically, so for instance, you can make a floor pattern for your department store, for instance. And you maybe you want people to follow a certain pattern, but then you got the rest of the floor to fill in. Well, now you can just fill it in chunks very easily. Very awesome update. A very interesting tool is the security rating tool. So now this shows us exactly what of our appliances are covered by our security. Now in fast food joints, they no longer require you to have security as there is no theft. They removed theft out of fast food places because it just honestly kind of doesn't make sense for the game, I should say. Theft does exist, obviously, in the real world, unfortunately, in fast food restaurants, but in the game, it's kind of silly. Finally, we have a very, very interesting tool, very cool one. Check this out. Time of day tool. You can change what the day looks like in, I'm assuming, just the look while you're in the tool itself, but it shows you what this place is going to look like as the day passes. Now the lights don't seem to be working for some reason. I'm not sure why, but what we're seeing here is a very interesting change, but it also now points out exactly the arc of light that the game world has. Very, very cool update. Whoever's working on the lighting in the game, good job. All right, guys, so it's advanced the day just slightly, but I want you to take a look at the fantastic lighting once again. Look at this. This is awesome. They have done a massive, very positive change to the game world. I really appreciate the effort that they put into this. It just dramatically changes the look and feel of this. It feels more authentic. It feels so just real. I love it. And the fact that light is still creeping in from the outside at a different color spectrum, or not spectrum, but a color range, a warmer tone, what you would expect from the sun versus the fluorescent lighting of the inside. It is just crazy good. Crazy, crazy good. Really appreciate this one. So here at the pier, we now have the 3 new importers. So over here we have Lunar Tide shipments. If we open them up in Bizman, we can see that they sell what looks to be food raw goods. Now, if we go to Maritime Freight, take a look at them. They have what seems to be more industrial goods. So like plastics, resistors, microphones, basically stuff to make your like headphones and other type of electronics devices. I mean, there is fabric as well, so obviously clothes, but and gems. We have uncut gems. So okay, so you have your clothing, your electronics, jewelry, I believe, clay and glass as well. So there's some other stuff here, but yeah, we have our other industrial goods. And let's just open the map here real quick. And Aquatic Bay Cargo, they sell other food related stuff such as vermouth, orange peels, juniper berries. So it looks like for alcohol here, down here, tobacco, cigar paper. So we can make cigars, carbon dioxide, I'm assuming for soda, stuff like that. So pretty neat, pretty cool. Got cola flavoring there too. So yeah, pretty cool. I like this this little area here, it's pretty nice. I mean, there's not really much to do in other than sitting benches and whatnot, but I mean, hey, they're adding to the game. That's the important thing. They're actually adding to the game. They're working on adding more features and adding more, you know, thorough chains of production and sales, etc. Very, very cool stuff going on here. All right, guys, so I got one very, very simple factory running right now. I have fries in the background here, but I'm still obviously learning how to do this. So it looks like I needed a different type of machine in order for me to actually get this to play through. So that's fine. We don't need to learn about that right now. We just can look at this at the moment. So pretty cool looking already. So you have your output person here, who is the burgers, and you have your inputs here, which the machine, if you hover over, will tell you you need burger buns, sliced cheese, and cooked patties, which obviously at that point, you have these other machines here, which there are a baking machine, a food grill, and a cutting machine, cutting the cheese, and grilling the beef, and baking the burger buns. They all get combined here in the assembly machine, and it spits it out right here to the output station, which then puts the products here on a pallet. Now, here's the thing. If I'm looking at this correctly with the data given in the game, we're going to need a lot of these. So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I can make, you know, a burger station and a fry station, and that'll supply at least one business. I don't think that's the case unless I'm missing something, but at least how this runs, it's only going to make 18 products an hour. So in my mind, I'm thinking, you know, maybe I need to make this just a burger factory only, and, you know, keep it singular like most factories in the world. They do eventually make a singular end product, if I'm not mistaken. Well, I could have multiples of these stations, of course, and then, you know, all assembling into just burgers, and, you know, spread it out in all these, you know, all the space I have here, and just focus on the burgers itself, so that I can meet, you know, the demand that we see on a daily basis for a fast food joint, especially multiple fast food joints. I don't know. The scale seems like it's going to be kind of nutty. Now, of course, this being experimental, none of these numbers, I should say, ever would apply right now. So don't think of these as final numbers. You know, it very well could be, once they release 0.6, you know, this number here, we could be seeing something along the lines of, like, you know, 1,800 products per hour instead of 18. So we'll see. I mean, these numbers here too, down at the consumption here. I mean, 258 days to get rid of cheese. Wow. We're going to have that cheese for quite a while. So I think these numbers will be adjusted per chance. I mean, I really don't know for sure, but I mean, this feels like it's not enough. But again, I've got one machine. Like, this is not, don't take this as the word. I think factories are going to be pretty awesome though. I really see a ton of potential on factories and how they work. Obviously it's an end game thing, so by the time you get them, you know, most places are probably going to be rented out for warehouses, making it a little bit more difficult. Maybe, you know, it'll be different. Maybe lending will be different now. Maybe the banks will allow you to lend or be lent more money instead of, you know, where they sit you at right now, especially for Tander. I wonder if they can lend you a lot more money to get these type of factories going. So very interesting to see how this, you know, works very simply, not, you know, not entirely. And I'm also thinking that you're going to need 24-hour factory. You know, it's got to be a 24-hour factory. You can't have a stoppage with how much product needs to be made on a daily basis. All right, so looking on the next thing that they brought out, we now have a moving service, which allows us to basically call this service, pack up what we have in our building, and move to a different location, be it a larger location or I guess same type of location. But I believe it should just move everything for you, keep all the stock and everything as well, and switch everything over. Now, the next thing I've already kind of touched on, the lighting, but they've also added some more visual improvements beyond that. We also have distinct atmospheres for our individual districts. So we'll have such effects as like fog or rain, or as you can see here in the images, you know, really cool ideas here with changes of the weather for different districts. It makes it have its own unique look. We also have moonlight shadows. We have more trash and dirt on the streets to kind of convey that, hey, this is a busy, bustling city. You know, the roads aren't always going to be completely and utterly clean. They're not going to be obviously trashed to high hell, but they're going to look like they're lived in. They're going to look more appropriate to what you would expect in a very large city like New York. We also have a new UI for the logistics, purchasing, HR, and headhunters. They have now what is called tasks. So most of them I've checked out, they look very similar to what they did. In fact, headhunters look exactly the same, but purchasing agents are a little bit different now. We have a more appropriate amount of information showing for what's happening with the orders and whatnot. For logistics managers, I think they did a good job of making a very important change, and that is giving us a much more easier way to see information across the board amongst all your businesses. So like what you saw before in some of my videos where, you know, I'm putting in kind of the same amounts for a lot of places for the logistics just to make sure everything is covered because they're, you know, they're the same type of location. Well, now I don't need to go tab to tab and, you know, not being able to see the other information that I want available to me. Now I can do this. Before I was taking snippets of my screen just to make sure I'm getting the same exact amounts on all of my items here. But now it points everything out very well. I mean, it even gives us every single type of thing that can be sold, and it gives us the ability to see, just like before, what items are actually being sold in that business, and then minimizing that so we can move on to the next business that we want to fill out. And lastly, they're touching on some of the quality of life improvements that they've provided us, as well as bug fixes. They have now done, you know, they changed the way paper bags work. So no longer are you, you know, let's say you're purchasing at Elgato Food Market and you bought your food, you put it away or you ate it, whatever you're doing with it. You no longer have that paper bag in your hand. It goes away. It just bloops out of existence, thankfully. So now no longer do you have to worry about lugging it around or getting rid of it and whatnot. It just does it on its own. Another is changing the store's dirty alert to be a little bit more forgiving, so it's not always showing up. They also did a really cool update in that if your character is watching TV, he or she is going to look for a spot to sit. So no longer you're not just standing there like staring at the TV, looking at, you know, a blank, well, not a blank screen, but you're not just blankly standing. It's very weird that they had that before, but I'm glad that they now have fixed that. They made it more natural. So now you are going to be sitting down at your couch, for instance, if you're in your apartment, or if you're at, you know, your bar or something like that, and you have a TV, you can sit down and watch TV at the bar. Like I said before, they've also updated the order-based businesses to no longer have theft. So things like fast food, it is not going to be bothered by theft every single day. So you don't have to do security any longer for those types of businesses. And another one I wanted to point out is they balanced the hairdresser. So what that means in this case, hairdressers are now, quote, slower, or rather they have less customers per hour. So they probably just balance it out so that hairdressers don't, and I could be mistaken here, but hairdressers don't generate as much income, but they're not nerfed to the point where they're just no longer a top tier business, which they should still be a top tier business, even with a slowdown of business. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up what's going on with EA.6. And just so you guys are aware, in Steam, you can access the experimental branch by going to your Steam list, right-clicking on your Big Ambitions game and going to properties, selecting betas, and then going into the drop-down and selecting experimental. And make sure that you download that update and get this checked out because it is really neat. I think this update, once it's actually fully released, it'll bring on a much more enriching experience with the big business, you know, our big ambitions of owning a business empire and taking over New York. I think that's going to be much more fun now moving forward with factories, especially given the fact that that's an end game goal now. It's something that you can add on to your end game ambitions, and you know, it's going to be fun. I really look forward to making a series for you guys here pretty soon. As you guys know, lots going on in my life right now. It's a lot more difficult for me to actually pretty much do anything these days, but hopefully things are going to settle somewhat. I know that I've been absent for quite some time, and it sucks, but it's unfortunately been necessary. I'll go into that more in the future here soon. But until then, I really appreciate all of you who have stuck around. Again, I know it's been a long time, but I'm really glad to have you guys still here. I really truly appreciate it. Now, if you haven't subscribed yet, obviously hit that button below. I really appreciate that for sure. And of course, give the video a thumbs up if you like the content. Once again, guys, I really appreciate you watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.